Hubner embraces luxury with a Cavalier CDI, top spec Cavalier of its day. You'll see we get fog lights, we get headlamp wipers, we get the lattice alloys, we get body colour door mirrors. It all shouts luxury. We've got a windscreen with a tint band at the top, tinted side glass. We've got a manual tilt slide sunroof. We've got 4 electric windows, plush velour. These were times when the top models looked very top and the base models were very base indeed. I always like the styling of the Mk2 Cavalier. It's not exciting, it's nothing to shout about, but it's pleasant. It's just square and angular, and I mean, it brought Vauxhall massive sales where the blobby Sierra might have scared people away. Hubnut, sponsored by Lancaster Insurance. The other difference to the Sierra was, of course, that the Cavalier was available as a hatchback or saloon from the very start, whereas the Sierra was initially hatchback only, and fleet buyers, they tended to like their saloons. If we go around the back of the car, being a late facelift model, we've got the sort of tinted rear lights, and the final facelift, struggling with contrast, introduced this tailblazer like panel around the rear number plate. Again, very stylish but very simple. And of course, many of you will know this car as an Opel Ascona. It is 100% an Opel design. Vauxhall had lost its identity by this stage. Yeah, Opel was the dominant partner and Vauxhall was just a badge. I think some Cavaliers were built here in Luton, possibly not by the time this one was built. I think there were other factories in Belgium and Germany that also churned these out. Let's go and have a look inside. So here we go, we've got the plush velour door cappings, we've got velour seats with all heavy side bolstering, we've got driver's seat height adjustment. Always amused by the fact that it looks like a window winder, but it works, it's effective. A classic 1980s Vauxhall dashboard, all very conventional. I mean, look at the warning lights. We've got 2 of them really. We've got the facelift Mk2 indicator stalks that have this extended bit, which makes them a bit easier to get your fingers on, perhaps. We've got height adjustment for the steering column. We've got a lovely auto reverse Philips top of the range cassette player, complete with GM markings on it. We've got the obligatory cassette storage to go with it. So you store your cassettes in there, put in your auto reverse player. The switch gear is a bit old hat by the 80s perhaps, but there's some charm in it. This one has the 3-speed automatic gearbox, so we'll see how that does. The time is wrong, it is not 4 o'clock. Over here we've got the lights. It's not as good as Nissan's little tinkly bell, is it? We've got the front and rear fog lights, and I believe that's to turn the interior light on. Dashboard illumination adjustment, because that's how posh this one is. But yeah, we've got the manual tilt and slide sunroof, so that's to get it back, and then lock, and then press the other way to tilt. I think we'll be making use of that today because it's such a lovely day, and a nice blind. If you find the sun's getting a bit much, not really going to be a problem in the UK. I haven't noticed the perforated vinyl headliner is still pretty much as it would have been originally. I think I should go and sit in the back and we shall report from there. Yeah, with the steering front seat set for me, it's not overly generous in terms of leg room. Now, we're always a little bit cramped, but I've got a head restraint which I could presumably arrange a bit better for my head in the event of a smash, but my head is touching the headliner, so not overly abundant space. We've got the electric window switches exactly where the winder would be initially, but you know, I get an ashtray. We've got mat pockets. I do like these are so useful. What we haven't got is a centre armrest. I would have expected one of those. And we've got, if I undo this, it's been for an MOT, so all the seatbelts are clipped in. It has these rather neat little things that enable you to attach the seatbelt to the seat. Yeah, so neat, I can't do it. There you go. But yeah, overall I'm going to say rear luggage space is not all that commodious. And yes, my gimbal has broken, which is why you're shaking all over the place. Blooming thing! Rear wiper. And because it's such a boxy shape, there's plenty of room in the boot. I mean, that's quite commodious. 60-40 split on the rear seat. Does that extend to the seat base? Yes, it does. So you can have one person sitting in while you fold down the other side. So yeah, the only downside is this really high load lip, which they did address with the Mark III Cavalier. The sunshine is showing off the tinted rear lights a bit more effectively here. Let's close the boot. Let's go and have a nose at the engine. I seem to recall the engine pull is somewhere here on a Mark II Cavalier. There we go, at least it's on the driver's side. I do get a bit annoyed when such things are not easily accessible. There we go. A very clearly overhead cam petrol engine with Bosch Motronic fuel injection in this case. Certainly they didn't have that across the range, it was top models only. I think we're talking 115 brake horsepower. Yeah, a very strong engine, but very simple. Look, we've got no plastic covers. Everything is beautifully accessible. And you got the washer bottle in the engine bay, so it'll actually warm up and defrost on a cold morning. All good. Timing belt replaced not all that long ago. Excellent. Right, let's go for a drive. First of all, I'm going to tilt my sunroof, if I can remember which way is tilt, because I think we'll be needing the ventilation. Make sure that's cold. Yep, okay. There we go, fuel injection, so it settles down nice and easily. We shall plonker in drive, and away we go. Try to ignore the sad looking 2CV, wondering why I'm disappearing in yet another car. Sorry, Ellie. So this is all the more interesting because I used to lap drive a relative's Mark II Cavalier. So the first car I ever sat in and steered on my relative's lap was a Mark II Cavalier. It didn't have power steering though. It was a mere 1.6L. So I think this is going to be quite a nice experience. I have driven a Mark II Cavalier before. Oddly, that was also an automatic, but that was a convertible. One of the more oddball cars. Find the electric window switch, there we go. So I can blag my way out. Here we go then. I'll have to do that window back up again. Well, a bit of an exhaust rattle going on there, but I always like the noise Vauxhall engines make. They're always a bit gruff. So once she's warmed up, we'll apply some beanage and see what happens. I mean, I will say, like many cars of this era, the interior plastics aren't really anything to write home around. There's the odd scratch and rattle, but I've just noticed I've got map reading lights. Ooh, how fancy. Quite like map reading lights, they're surprisingly useful. But it's a nice driving position, the seat feels nice and supportive, very comfortable, designed for, you know, reps to cover many a mile. Not that a rep would have anything like a CDI. I suppose if they're lucky they might get the LX. That was the rep special. It had some of the SRI dressing up and none of the power. Oh, I haven't got my door shut properly. That's not professional, is it? No wonder I've got a rattle going on. Ahem. Nothing to see here. Now personally, I will always leave an automatic in drive because you're not slipping the clutch, so there's nothing actually wearing. I mean, I wouldn't leave it in drive for terribly long, but a set of traffic lights, I reckon it's all right. There we go, we're in third already at 30 miles an hour. It'll be interesting to see what the gearing's like on the motorway. We've got a few miles to cover to get everything warmed up nicely. May have to concede the seat is a little too reclined, in fact. There we go. Do I get lumbar support adjustment? No, it appears not. You can't have everything. But compared to a Sierra, I think the Vauxhall has a better driving position. I always find in the Sierra you seem to sit lower and the dashboard kind of wraps around you a bit more, which is not something I like. It's one reason I don't like modern cars, is you feel encased in plastic. But then the Sierra has the advantage of its rear wheel drive, so you can have some oversteer enjoyment, which I never ever did in my dad's Sierra. I would just like to point out, just in case he's watching, never did I have the tail out on his Sierra. So yeah, I'm going to put it in neutral that time because I like to contradict myself. Yeah, I mean the Cavalier Mark II was a massive success for Vauxhall. They sold lots and lots of them. It's a complete fleet family favourite. On the manuals there were novelties such as the fact you could do a clutch change without removing the gearbox. And now, compared to a Sierra where it's prop shaft off, gearbox off, the Cavalier was a lot easier to maintain. It was always set up to be nice and simple. I assume I've got some electric adjustment for the mirrors somewhere. There we go. Oh, it doesn't work very well. That's the thing with mass-produced cars. The quality is not always the best. And the wiper blades don't seem brilliant either. I shall give you a demonstration. Because the windscreen's a bit mucky because we were doing headlamp wiper testing earlier. There was too many automated wipes going on for my liking. A trait shared with a Citroen BX. It has to be said, dynamically I would far rather be in a BX. They lope along in a lovely way and I really like the handling as well. But I haven't yet had a chance to really get a feel for this. My only previous Mark II experience... Oh, gold. Oh, motorways are a complete log jam and there's nowhere I can go now. That's frustrating, especially as I haven't had lunch yet. Boulder Dash. It might be some time before we can actually test this car in suitable conditions. Oh, disaster just about averted. We hadn't quite got onto the slip road, but yeah, the motorway is seized entirely solid. So I think we're going to be going the other way on the motorway. Unless I abandon motorway entirely, which I don't think I'm going to manage from this lane, unfortunately. Oh well, we'll go the wrong way up the motorway instead. So it's got a nice bit of punch about it when you put your foot down, even when you put it down a bit. Better get it in the fast lane really, where many a Mark II Cavalier would have spent its time. So did about 3,300 revs at 70. It's not the most relaxing, but it's fairly peaceful, I think. I mean, there's a bit of wind noise because I've got the sunroof open, but yeah, I mean, these cars were built to do this. It is exactly what a Mark II Cavalier was all about. But I'm driving in the slow lane because I actually have lane discipline. Unlike the very rare Mark IV Astra Saloon there. It feels nicely planted. Yeah, this is good stuff. I should say, I know I've compared it slightly unfavourably with a Ford Sierra, but I have had plenty of fun in Sierras, and I'm not anti-Sierra despite apparently being anti-Ford. I'm not anti-Ford, it's just I don't like some Fords, and Ford fans seem to find that hard to deal with. I can't really do much about that. It certainly is nicely brisk off the line. I think 0 to 60 is 8.8 seconds, so that's quite brisk. Not quick enough for these lights though. I mean, the Mk2 Cavalier is perhaps not the highest in terms of refinement, but you know, I can compare this with other examples of cars this size. Nissan Bluebird, it feels like it's got the edge on the Bluebird, because much as I like the Bluebird for the fact it feels like an utter tank, the Bluebird is not the most refined, it's not the most dynamic. You can't have much fun chucking a Bluebird about. It's just not really what they're built for. This feels a little more chuckable. It's got really nice steering. I've forgotten just how much I like an automatic gearbox, especially in these urban environments. It's lovely. So yeah, Mk2 Cavalier. A little unremarkable perhaps, but the perfect car for the time, for what people wanted. Simplicity but efficiency as well. You know, nice range of overhead cam engines, good power to weight ratios, pretty good economy, and very, very simple servicing. I mean, it's exactly what people wanted. But I think personally that they're nice to drive as well. The ride's pretty good. I mean, it's not the best, but it's pretty darn good. Oh well, this motorway jam is causing all sorts of issues. I managed to brighten things up in here by having the sunroof back, but the traffic is just horrendous. I have discovered one thing I don't like. There is nowhere to rest your clutch foot. I mean, you've got all the space, but I mean, would it have been that hard to just put a rest in? You know, especially given it's an automatic, so there's loads of room down there. But I guess they standardise these things, but still a little bit annoying. Oh, for the roads of Wales, eh? Do you think they'd mind if I took it away and left Ellie in Luton for a bit? I think Ellie might mind. Yeah, I mean, I'd go as far as to say this is pleasant. This is quite nice. It's one of those annoying cars that, although I like the Citroen BX, it does remind me that actually conventional suspension can work as well. And the interior build quality is certainly much better than a BX. Oh yeah, we have one working headlamp wiper. So there we go, that concludes our test of the Mk2 Cavalier and our visit to Vauxhall Heritage. Ignore the Ventura FD, someone else was having a play with that and they've parked it in the lineup out in the sun, which is quite pleasant to see. So yeah, Mk2 Cavalier, I quite like that. That's my sort of a car, really. Quite like the plush CD spec. Of the earlier Mark IIs, you could have like green dashboards if you had green paint. Marvellous. But yeah, I shall say thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe before you go, and I shall see you in a future video. Farewell. So, welcome to Vauxhall Heritage. What a fantastic collection it is. All these cars crammed in. I mean, I've got a huge soft spot for many of these cars. Corsa B, I learned to drive in a Corsa B. I passed my test in one. I didn't pass it in a posh GLS, so that's showing off a bit. Chevette, one of my favourites. The F-Type Victor, again, very American styling. But yeah, fine collection. There's even a Zafira over there. It looks like a VXR. Behind me, we've got the vans, the CF and the earlier CA. We've got some concepts over here as well. You can see a styling model for the Viva up on the shelf at the back. Bedford lorry. There is a lot here to see. So yeah, make a date in your diary, 9th of June. You can come have an explore. And I think you'll enjoy it very, very much.